Hello, it's Deborah from the attic, and today I have the latest Tonic craft kit. This is craft kit number 30 and it's called Spring Sentiments. Let's begin with these two items. This is a full-size clear drying craft glue. This is a 60mm size and I use this a lot. I really do like this on my projects because it's fluid enough to allow you movement time if things aren't exactly where you want them to be, but then when it does set, it really does grip things well. This is a little bottle of water droplets and these are pure sheen gemstones. These have flat backs, so it's easy for you to stick them down onto your projects, and they come in a variety of sizes. There's a large one and there's a little one. There are two pen sets in this month's kit. These are alcohol markers and they match the other alcohol markers that we've had in previous kits, and the colours on these ones are hay bale, butterscotch and shorthorn brown. These are Nuvo Aquaflow pens. They are brush watercolour pens, and the colours that they come in are clear water, vanilla sundae and true turquoise. Every 3 months Tonic will add a binder to the kits so that you can store your previous kits in them, and it means it's really easy to see what you have and to store what you have and to keep them safe. And then the stickers you can add on the end of the binder if you want to identify quickly what's in there. I'm going to come to this in a moment. First of all, I want to show you the cardstock that comes in the kits this month. There are 4 colours which are plain colours, but they have got a little bit of texture on them. It's like that sort of very soft wattly sort of texture. And then there are more heavily textured cards and papers, all beautifully colour coordinated so that they will fit with the theme of the kit. Inside this month's folder are these sentiments, so anniversary, birthday, especially with love, little one, and then a range of little flowers and groupings of flowers. And inside there are this set of dies. Now I've had a quick look at these, and I've also taken them out of the protective bag that you will get them in for your kit because I wanted to understand how these will work together. So let me just show you as an example. This little cutout, you could cut this out of a card, but you could also cut it out completely. So this this rectangle will go around the outside of this die cut here. There's a similar thing with the patterned die here and a circle that will go exactly around it. So when you're using these in your die, put them in like that and you'll cut out that as a complete separate circle. There's another flower-based shape, and then there are these two here. These are funny looking shapes, but they will coordinate with these 2 decorated dies here, and this one here will fit in this tag. So I'm going to have a little play with those and see just what we can produce. Before we get started on our makes, I thought you might like to have a closer look at the alcohol marker pens. So quite apart from the colours, what I wanted to show you is this barcoded little strip of, it's almost like sellotape to keep the lid on and keep it safe and keep it protected and have the barcode there. Now I quite like that it has the colour on this label as well, and so what I do is tear the barcode bit off and you'll see it just comes away. So these are designed for you to be able to keep that colour as a reference for when the pen is lying on your desk. And this is what each colour looks like when I draw it onto my paper. Now let's take a look at the aqua pens. These all have a protective layer here that stops the ink or the paint flowing into your nib, so that when you take the nib off there isn't a massive load of paint there ready to spray all over you. And to release this, unscrew the barrel, it's only a couple of turns, and take the layer away, and then put the barrel with the brush back onto the main body of the pen. That will then break a seal and will allow the paint to flow to the bottom of the brush. So I'm going to prime it. I'm going to press it at both sides. Usefully, it does say press, so you know to squeeze that, and that will help the colour flow through to your brush. And you might have to do this a few times. But I can see the paint is flowing into the bottom of the barrel there, and the colour is just beginning to come through into the brush. And there it is. This colour is True Turquoise. This colour is a little lighter and is called Clear Water. And this colour is Vanilla Sundae. I wanted to show you how I prepare my card when I'm about to do batch making, and I cut it down to the standard size that I use, and this means that I get the most out of every sheet of cardstock. Now this works for me because this is the size of card that I tend to make. If you make 6x6 cards, you won't get quite as much out of every sheet of card, but it does mean if you cut them down in advance, it does mean that you're all ready. And also, if you might have to make a card in a bit of a rush, it's really handy to be able to go to your stash and just pick out a piece of card and it's already done. I also cut down the patterned cardstock as well, and I always make sure before I do a big cut like this that any of the elements that I want to use from the kit will actually fit within the size of the card that I want to work with. Sometimes with these kits they will put in really large dies depending on what the make is going to be, but in this kit it works beautifully with the size of card that I like to work with. For our first card, I've used some washi tape to secure one of the sentiment dies to the upper centre part of one of the yellow cards that I cut out earlier. I secured it with washi tape because I wanted to be absolutely certain of the position that it would cut out, and I'm going to keep the piece that's been left on my cutting board, and if I remove the washi tape you can see the outline that's been left in my yellow card. I want to mount this yellow card on a piece of pattern paper which I've cut from the kit, so I've cut it down a little bit so I get a nice even border around the outside of my card. I'm going to use my pokey tool to remove the sentiment from my cutting plate. I'm going to pop out any elements that are still stuck in the centre of the sentiment. These pop out really easily. Next I'm going to take the frame die that matches with this sentiment and I'm going to position it over the gap that's been left in my top yellow card. I've got some washi tape there ready on the back of my hand, and when I'm happy with the position I'm going to use that to hold it in place while I run it through my die cutting machine. This is how it looks when it pops out of the die cutter. I've got a frame that's wider than the sentiment that was cut from that card earlier. When I layer everything up, I have a beautiful white border showing around the outside of my sentiment, and this matches with the border that will show around the outside of my card. I'm using a Wow embossing ink to ink up a sentiment from the kit. I'm going to stamp this down onto my yellow card, and I'm going to take some Nouveau embossing powder in white and I'm going to sprinkle this over my sentiment. I'm going to heat set this using my heat tool. Now I'm going to bring in my pattern background card with the sentiment I cut out earlier, and I'm going to begin layering things up. Once I'm happy with the position of all of my elements, I'm going to take the glue that was included in the kit and I'm going to put a little bit on the back of my hand. This is a really useful way of picking up glue on delicate lines of die cuts. So you just drop the lines into the glue on the back of your hand and that will make it tacky enough to stick down on your project without having glue seeping out from underneath. I've used the yellow card that has the frame to help me position the sentiment in the right place, and once the sentiment is stuck down I'll remove the top piece because I'm going to add some craft foam to the reverse of this. I use craft foam because it's a nice depth, it's about 2 to 3 millimeters deep, it's very pliable so you can cut out thin strips and you can bend them and curve them around whatever shapes you need. And you can cut the strips as thin as you need them. I've cut out several pieces and I've glued them onto the reverse of my card. This glue in the kit is very good for this, they stick really well. I'm going to add some more glue to the top of my craft foam, and then I'm going to turn my design over and I'm going to glue it onto my base card. This adds dimension without adding too much bulk, and it allows the sentiment to be more of a focal point. To make sure my card with all its glue underneath dries evenly, I'm going to use one of my stamp blocks just to leave on the top of the card. I want to add some more detail to the front of my card, so I've got a piece of tracing paper. This is just a thin strip. It's wide enough to take the die, and I've folded it over so that I have 4 layers. I'm going to put this through my die cutting machine. Once it's popped out, I'm going to use my pokey tool to help me break between the 4 very thin layers of this tracing paper. The glue on my card has dried, so now I'm ready to layer up my 4 flowers. I'm going to put a dot of glue on my card and add the first layer. Then I'm going to add a tiny dot of glue in the center and add the second layer, and I'm going to offset the petals ever so slightly. Then I decided I wanted more petals, so I cut some more out, and to complete them this time, I've added a tiny dot in the center using one of the gold Nouveau drops from a previous kit. And with that, the first card is complete. I'm beginning our second card by cutting out one of the sentiments with its frame from a piece of the beautiful gold patterned paper. I'm going to run this through my die cut machine, having first secured the frame and the sentiment down with some washi tape. Once again, I'll use my pokey tool to pop away any elements that shouldn't be in the center of my sentiment. I've got a matching piece of the gold patterned paper, and I also have a piece of cream card from the card kit. I've got my sentiment ready to be glued up, and I'm going to use the same technique as I used earlier with the glue on the back of my hand. And I'm going to stick this in the center of my cream piece of card. Next, I'm going to position the cream card slightly to the top of my patterned gold paper. I want to leave myself a nice space at the bottom of my card because I'm going to add some twine. This is just a neutral coloured twine, and I'm going to add this once I've glued my card onto my base. Starting on the reverse of my card, I'm going to wrap my twine around it so that I have 2 long pieces of twine that end up at the front, and then I'm going to tie them in a bow. My top design is now ready to be glued onto a card. For our final design today, I've taken the tag frame and the tag inner, and I've attached them using washi tape to a piece of the silvery grey textured card, and I've run them through my die cutting machine. Next, I'm going to place the tag frame only on a piece of the ivory patterned and textured card, and I'm going to run that through my die machine as well. This will give me a background. And to get the maximum from our cardstock, I'm going to use the same sheet from which I cut my first tag as a background and a frame for my top piece of card. The first 2 tags that I die cut will layer on top of each other and look like this, but I need to make a sharper contrast between the tag and the background. To do that, I've used a few strokes from the Vanilla Sunday Aquaflow pen. With all the elements prepared, it's time to layer our card together and stick everything in place. I'm going to begin by sticking our beautiful background onto the frame below. This is the frame from which I cut my original tag. I've glued the layers of my tag together and secured them with a bow at the top, using the same twine as I used on my earlier card. I'm going to glue up a piece of craft foam that was left over from an earlier project and stick that on the back of my tag. I'm going to add some more glue to my craft foam, and then I'm going to stick my tag in the center of our watercolor effect. To complete my card, I'm going to add some dots of glue in random patches on my design, and then I'm going to add some of the gemstones to the glue spots. And that completes our card. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching. I'm going to leave you with some music and some close-ups of all of the cards that we've made today. And until we meet again, take care.